We're a little shy of members, but we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome. Today is a work session convened from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock to discuss AIM 132-2024 from the Mayor, Anchorage Equal Rights Commission 2023 Annual Report. We'll start with introductions.
George Martinez.
Mark Littlefield.
Karen Bronga.
Daniel Voland.
Christopher Constant on the phone. We have Mr. Rivera.
Here.
Anyone else on the phone? I'm not seeing or hearing anyone, so go ahead now.
Kim, Director, Anchorage Equal Rights Commission.
So when you talk, press the button, the green light goes on, let the button go. Press it. Hold on, press it and let it go. There you go. The green light comes on, you're good.
Keoki Kim, Anchorage Equal Rights Commission Director.
And if you leave it on, you have a hot mic.
Oh, should we push it? Like that. Oh, now it's green. Lynette Harley, investigator for Equal Rights.
Geeta Franklin, lead investigator for Equal Rights Commission.
Welcome. Who just joined us on the phone? Mr. Salt?
That's Randy Salt.
All right,
Yep,
thank you. So for a lot of work sessions, we lead them. I have a kind of a work plan, but I don't have that because this is a briefing to us from the Equal Rights Commission. Mr. Kim, you have the floor.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I can hardly hear anybody speaking. Is there a way to turn up their volume? Yeah. Thank you. I met with you all approximately a year ago, and I asked Chris to schedule another work session so I could tell you what we've been up to this year. Number one, our backlog is caught up. The 4-year backlog that I came into the commission with has now been caught up. My team worked a lot of overtime to get it done, and they had to be extremely thorough about it. It couldn't be something that was done quickly because the cases were so old. They merited a lot of attention to make sure everything was done correctly. And I want to thank especially Geeta Franklin, my case manager. She had to hire 2 or 3 more investigators and train them and keep the investigations going and everything on track. And she just did a marvelous job doing that. And really, we couldn't have done it without her and without all the overtime she put in. So thank you, Geeta. My office is almost fully staffed. We have 4 investigators. My executive assistant position posting closed last Monday, not this Monday, but the week before Monday. And so I'm just waiting for HR to send down the applications. So we will be fully staffed. We now have 4 investigators to process the cases. One is the case manager, another is an outreach specialist. Ms. Harley has done civil rights work almost her entire life. Can you just take a short amount of time, 2 minutes, and tell us where you started with in the Iowa?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Harley. Oh, gosh, hot mic. There we go. I'm Harley. My background is law enforcement. I was a paralegal, and then I became a police officer for the Sioux City, Iowa Police Department. This is in the early 90s. I was one of the first female officers in the department history. I was also the first hearing impaired officer. And when I went into the law enforcement academy, the director of the academy saw that I wore hearing aids. He did not like women in law enforcement, and he booted me out. It made national news. And of course, it was a big sensational item in Iowa. And if you all know who wrote the Americans with Disabilities Act, that was Senator Tom Harkins from Iowa. He contacted me, put me in touch with the high-profile lawyers in DC, and we fought, and I won on appeal. Once I won on appeal, I then went and worked with the Iowa legislature to update the standards for police officers to include hearing accommodations. If you can wear glasses and work, you should be able to wear hearing aids and also work. So that is the start of my career with equal rights, human rights. I'm very passionate about it. And I'm very excited to have this position to help the municipality enforce and educate our community. Thank you.
So obviously, I'm really happy to have an outreach specialist, somebody that can help us get known. As you probably read in my transition report, for the last 2 years, I've been doing an informal survey where I go out 2 to 3 times a week and just ask everyday normal people, have you ever heard of the Anchorage Equal Rights Commission? Not one single person has responded yes. So I feel like it's really incumbent, if we're going to be a service in the municipality, to let our residents know what we do and how we can help them. So I've asked my outreach specialist to contact each of you and perhaps meet with you about ideas about how to spread awareness of our agency in your districts to your constituents, because I felt like you might have some more tailored ideas for how we could reach your particular constituents, or which groups or et cetera we might work with in your districts. There have been 2 EAs since our meeting last year. Chris, at the last meeting, asked me, why are people leaving? So I made sure to ask this time, and they both stated the pay is too low. All the furniture and equipment in the office is now in working order. My sexual harassment campaign, this is the Justice for All with the silhouette and a little logo on the front. And it's, and my unity campaign, this is just about, we're all stronger together. We're all residents of one place. You know, let's all work together. And my children's campaign, this is to appeal to children and young parents of children. And my education campaign, this is Elizabeth Paradovich Spoke Her Truth. And I've got these products in different, I spoke to a young woman about how to reach people with stuff they want, not the cheap plastic products that you typically see out. What will people use and wear? And she helped me design these products. And then I've enlisted teenagers in our youth ambassador program to design things for us so that we can cross market these ideas and logos onto different things to try and get people to use them. And with the hope that, I just ask everybody, when somebody asks you, what is that? Just say, that's the place you go for discrimination and sexual harassment. That's all I ask. Just tell them we exist and we can help them. I've also, so those are my 4 campaigns this year. And they've been very successful in terms of, I am almost out of all of this stuff, because the people who take it and wear it and tell other people, their friends come to my office and say, hey, can we help spread the word too? Can we get a hoodie? Can we get a t-shirt? Can we get a tote? Can we get whatever? And I don't have it in stock. So I used non-labor, my labor funds to pay for it when I was understaffed. And then, where is my notes? The police chief, I met with the police chief and I met with the fire chief, and they've agreed to include us in their officer training. And they've also agreed to include us in their neighborhood events. So again, we can let residents know who we are and what we do. I asked them to include us in our officer training because I thought, as people of authority in uniform, they're probably often approached as problem solvers. And if each of their officers know we exist, they can help people find us. One of my investigators is a former police officer. He served for 7 years. He said, never heard of us. And he said he had countless people talk to him about sexual harassment or discriminatory housing issues or discriminatory employment issues. And he just had to say, it's not criminal, so I can't help you. Talk to an attorney. But there is a municipal agency that can help. Um, um, the police chief has agreed to come to our second annual Alaska Civil Rights Conference and host a panel and be available for questions and answers from the community, and also talk about the positive things that the police department is doing to address the community concerns. I guess he's working on some legislation about hate crimes and hate incidents. We don't have any legislation about that. And he wants to tell the community about it and build support for it. And I wanted to tell you all that you're all invited to participate in this. If you'd like to be on a panel or host a panel and discuss any particular legislation you're working on and try and educate about the public about it, we'd love to have you participate. We did presentations at a local school, 2 local schools, and at the presentations, I handed out T-shirts and had students sign a banner, and it was just a really simple message. Just agree to respect each other. Let's all treat each other with respect. That's the basis of equal rights. And, you know, the children were really enthusiastic about it. And I reconnected with the teachers that helped me plan the event and host it. And they said, our shirts are all over the schools this year. They see them everywhere. So the kids are using them, they're wearing them. Their parents are seeing them. When they're running around in their neighborhoods, people are seeing them. And it's another step toward educating the public about what we do and who we are. I'm working with the Alaska State Commission on Human Rights to do a Alaska discrimination survey. I met with OMB about my PVAs, and one of the things I tried to think about is, how am I going to demonstrate progress to the municipality in the elimination and education of discrimination? So we conducted the survey to try and find out where we're at, what are the problem areas, what are the hot spots, et cetera, so we can get some real data instead of all being just subjective, and then measure it hopefully in another 5 years to see if we've addressed it. That survey cost $95,000. I got the state to fund $70,000, and I used $25,000 of my unspent labor funds to fund the rest. That is a good deal for the municipality because we represent almost 50% of the state's population. The fielding for the survey closed yesterday, and we have 3,000 people that answered our surveys, and now we're in the process of tabulating and assembling the results. They'll be available by October 11th, and they'll be available for anybody to use. They might serve one of your purposes in the areas you're investigating or trying to address. We are also almost finished with our Alaska Civil Rights graphic novel. Where's my novel? Oh. That is the chapter on William and Tilly Paul, who were early Alaskan civil rights leaders. And one of the objects of the Anchorage, or the mission statements of the Anchorage Equal Rights Commission, is to provide education about equal rights and about what the law is. So this graphic novel I'm doing in conjunction with the Alaska State Human Rights Commission. I funded it with $3,500 from the EEOC. I got an EEOC grant. And the Alaska State Human Rights Commission is kicking in the other $21,000 to fund this. There's 3 chapters. That's the first chapter. And the third chapter is on the Alaska Black Engineer Corps that helped build the Alcan Highway. It's just an incredible story. And I think it's important for children to know about all the Alaskan heroes that have worked hard to help us all be treated equally. Can you hand that to him to hand around? And then that'll be ready by October 11th as well. I've also developed a trading card series of Alaska civil rights leaders. And again, this is for children and just for adults too. It's just kind of who the leaders in Alaska were in civil rights. And on the back is just little bullet points about the things they accomplished. And these are many very powerful stories about simple individuals who had no influence, who came from nothing, but because they cared, they were able to accomplish something for us all. Because I think it's important for children especially to realize you don't have to be a big, powerful person with lots of resources and accesses to accomplish something. You know, often people accomplish something just by trying. So, you know, we've got a wide assortment of individuals here and their accomplishments. Can you hand that out? And what I hope to do with that is take each of those cards and I'll develop a bookmark. And this is the first one. And it just states, Elizabeth spoke her truth. That's Elizabeth Pradovich, who helped pass the Anti-Discrimination Act. And so again, the idea is to develop many different ways of communicating and teaching to appeal to different ways of learning and understanding. Can you hand that out? And the trading cards will also be ready by October 11th. The Youth Ambassador Program is off to a good start. We've had at least one high school student attend each of our commission meetings. We have expanded our open hours from 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. I feel like it's really important for Anchorage residents to be able to reach us beyond bankers hours. We're currently trying to figure out how to expand our open hours to Saturday because most people work 9 to 5. And if it's a problem with employment, it's going to be very difficult for them to call us while they're at work. So we need to be accessible when they have time to seek our help. They shouldn't be working on just our schedule. We have continued to have meetings at the Lusac Library for easier public access. As you all know, the parking lot here closes at 5, the building locks up. So when we have our commission meetings at 6 p.m., it's just easier if people can come to the Lusac Library. There's free parking, all the doors are open. We want the public to be able to participate. We've reserved a table at the entry of the Lusac Library every Wednesday, and we work on our cases, and we just have a little table tent that says, ask us about equal rights. So again, people who are interested, we can just tell them what we do and how we can help them. I and Commission Chair Gibbons and Commissioner Moreno attended the National Human Rights Conference down in St. Louis, Missouri. We discussed with the planning board bringing the conference to Alaska. The planning board is very eager to work with us and try and make that happen in 2026. The president of the National Human Rights Association has agreed to come up and be a keynote speaker at our Civil Rights Conference on October 11th and 12th. And then we'll be able to meet with her and plan more and learn more about how to host a national conference. Part of the reason I'm really excited about Harley coming on board is because in her career, she has organized and hosted national conferences. So we have some knowledge in-house about how to do these things. I met with Seattle Human Rights, Tacoma Human Rights, Washington Human Rights, and the Seattle EEOC field office in April. We've set up a Teams group to discuss investigation techniques and ongoing issues that affect our agency. Seattle Human Rights just completed a very in-depth investigation manual. We're trying to develop our own investigation manual. They shared that with me in Word format, so we don't have to start from scratch. We can get it done sooner. We've got somebody else's to compare it to, and hopefully it'll be more thorough. The EEOC provided very useful information about their intake process, which helps make investigations quicker and provides a more efficient use of staff time. I also met with Idaho Human Rights in June. They shared their presentations with us and offered to assist us in developing our presentations. They also shared how effective their well-designed website is in assisting with outreach. And it's what's really interesting about Idaho Human Rights is they have very little outreach budget, but they receive complaints. They cover the entire state of Idaho. They have one office, Boise. They receive complaints from towns with residents as few as 300 people that they have never in the history of Idaho Human Rights ever visited or been near. And their director said he believes it's because they have an effective website. People use the internet now. I also learned from them about their intake process and how the way they redesigned their intake process has allowed their investigation to be more efficient, get completed on time, and it's a better use of staff resources. So in effect, the EEOC, Idaho Human Rights, they conducted an experiment for me to see and learn from. We also did a code review with our legal advisor, Paul Ervasti, and two of our commissioners. There are no substantive changes. It is just an attempt to make the code more readable and understandable by non-attorneys. We had a commissioner training session last year for all the new commissioners to try and educate them about how to be a commissioner, how to do the task you're assigned. And we're having another training session on Monday the 9th. And I'd really like to thank Daryl Hess in the audience because he trained the last one and he's again providing training for this one. He was a commissioner for 12 years and he's got a vast depth of knowledge, which is very helpful to us and we don't want to lose. So my recommendations after being here for 2 years, we definitely need to keep focusing on outreach. People need to know who we are. We can't help people if they know who we are. The EEOC just recently sent out a notice about last fiscal year, the number of charges the EEOC received involving harassment jumped more than 28%, the highest since the agency started monitoring harassment charges since fiscal year 2010. Charges involving retaliation, more than 46,000, a 31-year high. The problem is I'm not seeing those numbers in my agency. So what it tells me is people don't know we exist. Last week, I sent my outreach specialist, Harley, to the Alaska Aviation Women's Group. It was fascinating. The meeting turned into a 2-hour session about all the discrimination they've incurred during their careers in aviation. One mechanic told how she had to fight a 2.5-year lawsuit regarding sexual harassment at her job. And they were flabbergasted that there is a municipal agency that could handle these cases for them, that could assist them. And they're also more than willing to help us. They invited Harley to attend their annual.
There's a convention in February here, and she would like me to be a guest speaker to speak on this issue.
Yeah. So, and over, whoever I approach, when I tell them what we're doing, they're very enthusiastic about helping us and making the word known. I have yet to have any person say, No, I'm not interested because equal rights appeals to all of us, no matter what the gender, no matter what the color, no matter what the sexual orientation. You know, we all want equal representation. Um, so my recommendations are that currently my non-labor budget is 21,000 a year. And I think about 8 years ago, it used to be $80,000. I respectfully ask or recommend that my budget be increased back to 80 because I funded these different campaigns with unspent labor. But as soon as I get the applications from my HR, do the interviews, I'll be fully staffed. So and I made this recommendation to the mayor too. If you'd like me to continue these outreach efforts, I'll need more funding. If it's not possible, if there's not funding, we'll work in other ways on our website, et cetera. We'll continue the mission. But I feel like it's my job just to candidly tell you what I believe would help us. Regarding labor, I'm really happy about the mayor's focus on retaining staff. The amount of time it takes to figure out municipal systems is incredible. And the lack of training is significant. So when we have staff that have figured these things all out, it allows us to be more efficient. We need to be efficient. Right now, I'm working on our records destruction. So every year, a municipal department is required to destroy out-of-date records. For example, legal records must be destroyed if they're older than 6 years. I am in the process of destroying records from 1974 onward. That's how far behind we are. And I think part of that is because of staff turnover, director turnover. You know, right now, my staff is composed of an investigator 4, 2 investigator 3s, and investigator 2. And here's what's interesting. The difference between an investigator 4, 3, and 2 is they all do investigations. Once they're trained, they can all handle investigations. But investigator 4s are specialists or case managements. So what is happening is, I'm training 2s and 3s and 4s. They're all competent in investigations. And then the 2s and 3s, they will not advance unless there's a 4 position, unless my 4 leaves, which we don't want her to do. And what's really interesting about this is an investigator 4 gets paid about $8,000 more than an investigator 3. An investigator 3 gets paid about $8,000 more than an investigator 2. So for $32,000 a year, I could have 4 investigator 4s that could be specialists. I could have a case manager, I could have an outreach specialist, I could have an employment specialist, an ADA specialist, whatever the need is. And to me, it's a minimal investment for the municipality, but it's a huge benefit for the employee. Because if you're paying a mortgage you obtained in the last couple of years, if you're paying a car payment, a difference of $8,000 can be substantial. The other thing I'd like to ask is, so my agency is a semi-independent agency, and I am under the supervision of the assembly and the mayor. I meet with you guys once a year. I meet with the mayor once a year. I would really like it if I could meet with you more often and get more feedback, tell you what I'm working on, get your feedback, and not just have it be a once a year thing. You know, I feel very isolated over there, and I want to be part of the team. I want to know what you think of my ideas and projects, and get support and feedback, and also get ideas, because I'm just one person and I'm doing the best I can. But if I had the assistance of additional people with additional ideas, maybe you guys have better ideas than I do, and we can work together to solve this problem. I would also like to meet with the mayor and the community manager more often, and get more feedback, get more direction. Because again, I'm new and it takes quite a bit of time to learn the right ways to do things. And I want to do things the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd note that we were joined way at the beginning by Ms. Brawley, and also Mr. Presverdia just arrived, and I have a queue started. We'll start with you, Ms. Brawley, then Mr. Presverdia.
Yeah, thank you. And I apologize, I missed part of it. I'll go back and watch the recording. I have two questions, and maybe you covered one of them already when I wasn't here. Looking at the different areas of discrimination that you're addressing, housing discrimination is on my mind. Obviously, all of these are an issue, and it looks like more people are aware of your services in terms of employment discrimination. I just wonder, I guess, knowing that there's only been a few complaints, what have you been hearing, or what are your kind of biggest areas of concern as far as based on what you know about what's going on in the community?
I brought my case manager here because she works in depth with all the intake and the calls. So Gita, can you field that question for us?
As far as housing, we do get a lot of inquiries. However, not all of the inquiries turn out to be a complaint because some of them is not under our jurisdiction or there is no basis of discrimination. But what we have seen as far as housing is majority that we get is people with disabilities and also with age discrimination that we see. But like I said, we don't receive a lot of them. If we cannot help them, sometimes if there is a disability issue that may not be something that we can take, that has another aspect to it, we usually refer them to Alaska Disability Law Center because they do take cases that is more related to the housing. So we have seen it, but like I said, majority of them is that, the unit that I live is filthy or elevators doesn't work. And those are the things that it will affect all of the people, and our agencies focus on specifically for individuals. So if not that, we have to say that we understand that is, your property manager is not dealing with the issue, but it's affecting everybody, not only certain people. So we get a lot of those inquiries, but some of them doesn't take to the complaint level. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I know you guys have a specific purview that you're in.
Yes.
My other question, and then I'll be done, is so I appreciate the recommendation to have, and as you said, it's for level 4 investigators, it sounds like, and I think it's a good rationale to be able to specialize, also to recognize that we want to keep people around. I guess I wonder, I'm just curious, is there a value or a function for having still one or more lower level investigators with the idea that they're taking on kind of more routine duties and then it gets elevated? I guess I just wonder, because I've heard other agencies where that's the idea, is you have some folks who can deal with the day-to-day stuff and then you have specialists, but maybe your agency operates differently. So if you could unpack
I
that.
find those are bigger agencies. And so what they're doing is they've got more people coming and going all the time. So, and they often have lower pay, and it's just harder for them to feel, say, 10 or 15 level 4s, but we only have 4. So.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple questions. Go back to the first question I have is, can you go a little further into the 4-year backlog as you described? You described that you were able to bring us back up to date with respect to having a 4-year backlog. Can you just describe what that actually means? How were those cases disposed of, and what numbers are we talking about?
Yes, Gita, Gita's the one that did the cases, so why don't I have you talk about the
Sure.
process?
So in 2023, we went from 4 investigators. By March, we went from 4 investigators to only me. So at the time, what I focused on, we did have a lot of backlog. Unfortunately, Kyoki came into a mess. So I will be upfront with you. the lot of cases, we had cases that they were over thousands days overdue. So when the investigators left the agency in March 2023, it was only me, so I have to attack the cases that I didn't have, myself had no backlog. So I want to put that out there. So so I had to attack the cases at the most oldest. However, is not a one person's job. When the cases are cold and old, complainants are angry. So I did my best to do the ones that I could do the most and most efficient, because it's hard for one person investigator to get into a case if there is no case notes, if there is no indication where the case was left off. But I'm a very good multitask, so I quickly gather all this information. I started to do the oldest one, and meanwhile, we had to hire people. So when people come in, even if they are investigator, what we do is very specific. So I had to do working on the older cases, meanwhile training the new people. Even if they know the case management system is different for each agency. So I was juggling in between, and I was lucky. The people that we hired were very efficient, very, I have to say, intelligent. So once or twice, if I show them one, whatever item or task, they were picking it up so quickly. So they started to do the job, working the cases. However, I was overseeing all those work as well. So because I had to make sure that any cases that leave the building has to be to the best, it has to be done correctly, not just because we want to clear it fast and then do the minimum job. So I had to have them to do the cases. I was training them at the same time. I reviewed the cases. And then after my review, the whole case will be reviewed by Kyoki. So it was a long process, and I did put a lot of overtime, so did he, because we had to focus on the administration side of the office as well. He helped me with as much as he could with whatever he could at the time, and we did it. I mean,
If I can just interrupt,
Sure.
Peter, thank you. I appreciate your taking the answer. Kyoki, I was asking for the numbers. The particular
Yes.
process of
Okay.
which
Okay, sorry.
the staff had to kind of work through those things
Okay.
is a different question that I had. I was interested in, when you say there was a backlog, presumably there will be a number associated with.
Yes.
And there were
Yes.
400 or whatever the number would be.
Yeah.
And so kind of working it
So-
through from that vantage point.
In my annual report.
Yeah.
On the.
Starting with
let me
70.
get that one, two,
I
three.
know the numbers
Page
if you like
14.
to answer the exact number. So at the time that it was only me, I was left with over 70 cases. And as you can see on the numbers on the report, majority were old. So it's 70 cases, and I worked them through, and then when we hire the new employees, they get, so
Yeah, if you look at page 14,
40.
my chart that says case age, it shows that in 2023, 49% or 53.52% of our cases were older than 240 days. Our deadline is 240 days. And of those, it breaks it down into, in 2023.
Deadline meaning what?
Pardon me?
Just help me understand, as you say,
Deadline.
deadline, what does deadline mean of 240?
So Title V says that we are to efficiently process our cases within 240 days. We have a deadline.
So when it's over, what does that mean?
It means it hasn't been done within 240 days.
No question, but what does that mean? Does that mean the case is disposed of, or does it mean that it
No,
still goes
it
back
means
into
the
work?
investigation hasn't been completed and a determination hasn't been made as to whether there is substantial evidence to take a case further,
Yeah.
or there's not enough evidence and the case should be closed. It's basically a complainant comes in and says, I have a problem. And we say, we'll investigate it. And then after
Okay, I'm getting the picture. I guess
Okay.
if I may, one final question to this would be, how many cases were administratively disposed of across the case load that you had versus
Okay.
to a completion of a different aspect of how these things close? How many were administratively dealt with? Thank you.
You want me to answer that? I know the answer.
I don't know if I have that chart in here. Every month I do a director's report and I tell my commission how many cases we've closed by, say, settlement, by complaint withdrawal, by administrative closure because we can't get a hold of the complainant anymore, or by determination. I can build a new chart and provide that information, but thank you. That helps me.
So,
But can I answer that?
sure.
So out of the 77 old cases, about maybe 15 of them, they weren't administratively closed. It doesn't mean that the agency closed. Some of the people would also withdraw their complaints because they were mad. They were waiting for so long. So the ones that were administrative closure, like Keoki said, is if we had people who had passed away. You know, when I started reaching to the complainants, people were like, who are you? What are you calling? Who are you reaching out? My dad died 2 years ago. So not everything was just, there was a good reason. There was password. Unfortunately, we cannot put in a report that 5 of the people that we tried to reach, they were passed on or things happen. So about, I say out of 77, about maybe 15 of them was closed for different reasons. I know that, by memory. Yeah.
So, Mr. Martinez, I'm going to take a stab at answering a question that you asked. You asked what happens if a case isn't disposed of within 240 days. And I don't know if there are any due process rights that are outside of what happens to the case, but I think what happens is their rights are not being upheld by us as a municipality because the code directs that their hearings should be concluded by 240 days. And thus, I think it's justice delayed, which we know what that is, I think. It would be my answer. And that's not specific to any person trying to clean up the mess, but I think the simplest answer is effectively justice delayed, or at least potentially if there is in fact a real cause of action there. And that's really, I think, the answer to your question.
Yeah, because a lot of these people, they're filing cases because they've lost their job. 240 days is a long time to get relief, or they've been unable to obtain housing. We have enough of a homeless problem. So there's a real need for my agency to process cases quickly and efficiently. And as part of my code review, I recommended that the deadline be lowered from 240 days to 180 days. And the main reason is because it was originally 180 days, but it was raised to 240 days because the agency couldn't get the cases done on time. But I don't think that was the solution. The solution is tracking the cases more closely, closer monitoring, closer supervision, better training, and more expectations, et cetera.
I had to jump in there and make sure we got that answer on the record. Mr. Prisrudi, did you have something? Yep. All right.
I'm curious about the relationship. So when I think about your office and the work you do and its relationship to the chief equity officer, and the idea that position, the hope for that position is that you're seeing trends, right? You're seeing areas within our community where, whether it's because of a policy or because of an individual organization or because of and that data, I think, helps us to understand where we can actually put energy, where we could put resources, where we could change policies, where we could see things that actually could shift. And so what I'm curious about, and I know that you're overwhelmed with the work that you're doing, but what I'm really curious about is as you're collecting all of this information about all of these cases and you're seeing that, is there a way for that information to be shifted to go into that other office and so that we could have a sense of what kinds of policy changes we could make?
Yes. So what I said in the beginning of my presentation was and in the middle of conducting a statewide discrimination survey. It's a $95,000 survey and we paid $25,000 for it. And we're 50% of the population, and that data, the fielding closed yesterday, and the data will be ready by October 11th. And I'm going to freely share that with anybody who wants it. And it covers, basically all kinds of different areas of discrimination. And that's an idea I got from a human rights agency in Ohio. And again, they sent me the bulk of the data, and then I customized it for us. So I'm not recreating the wheel. But yes, I think that would be helpful. And I also expressed a request to meet with you more often, because the problem with only meeting with you once a year is what people were telling me 11 months ago and the time I have. I feel very self-conscious about taking up so much time, and it would be easier for me to pass it on if I had, say, quarterly meetings, or if I could meet with you individually or show you what I'm doing and get your feedback on it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.
So I have myself in the queue. I have a handful of quick questions, I think, and I might recommend, if you have time, an updated version briefly before Tuesday, so we can make sure the one that goes in the permanent record is right on. So just a couple of things. On page 13, your table at the bottom doesn't have a label.
Right.
So I assume, my conclusion is that's just demographics, or I'm not sure exactly what that is in relationship to the number of complaints you have. Or if it's the same as the one above, it's missing a label. If it's complaints by basis, just a visualization of it. All the rest of them have a label. So that one doesn't have a label. What is perfected in the context of complaints?
So perfected means that an inquiry has become a complaint and it's been signed and notarized either by our agency or other agencies. So that means perfected. That's mean we have a complaint.
Okay, and that means it's kind of met all the standards that you need to proceed. That's not, would a complaint that is made that has got everything in order but isn't something you can handle be in a perfected complaint?
Usually the only complaints that we have it has to be perfected. That I don't know how to explain it, but perfected means that it's the actual complaint.
Okay, so you've gone through all the screening
Oh,
and
the
everything is
screening
in
and
order.
everything, and so that's the actual complaint that we will be serving it on the respondent.
So, and this one I think is why I would recommend, other than that label, looking at submitting just an updated one. I would welcome under page 1, you had one member who resigned during that year, and
Right.
I would like to have it annotated, that a resignation date
Okay.
there. I just think you don't have to put any other context, just resigned as of this date. I think it would be very valuable to include that information for reasons.
Okay.
And so, and I think it would be worth the effort to get that done, just so that the one that we put up is fully accurate.
Yep.
And to the point. Now, one last subjective, and this one's going to come in the form of a question. So I believe you're making progress on clearing old cases. The visualization of this table on page 14 doesn't look like that. It looks like this year we have more cases that are over 401 days.
This was
than-
2023.
Yeah.
Right. And so, okay, so what you're saying is now in 2024, relative to this report that you're briefing us on, it's different than what we're seeing here.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It
That's,
took us until,
April.
yeah.
Yeah. By April this year, 2024, we
Mhm.
cleared the backlog.
okay. That's helpful clarification of
Right.
the information so that what we're hearing is updated from the point of this report to today. Okay, those are all my kind of questions that I had. Really, I think that a label on that one table would be helpful, and just note that the date that person resigned.
Okay.
Yeah, again, no need to get into why, but there are other records to demonstrate that. Mr. Martinez, Ms. Braga first, then Mr. Martinez.
I was looking at page 14, and on the 2023 data, the long green line is the 401 or more, but then there's 39. So is that 39% of the cases in 2023 were 401 days or more? Or what does the 39 denote?
Yeah, 39, in 2023, 39 cases were over 400 days.
So
And
that's
what's
just,
important to
that's not a
note,
percent, that's the
Correct.
actual number of cases.
right, the
Yes.
percentage was 55%.
Oh, okay.
And what's important to know also that's not in the chart is over 400 days does not necessarily mean 401, 402. It means like Gita was saying, over 1,000 days. Some of the cases were 3-4 years old, you know? So,
I had one more thing. I don't want to be snarky at all on this, but I kind of feel like the merchandise a little bit turns me off. Like, this is the campaign for this, this is the campaign for that. To me, a T-shirt is not a campaign for women's domestic violence awareness. That I don't know how much budget is being spent on T-shirts and sweats and rubber ducks, but
Yeah.
I feel like there's, in my mind, better ways to spend the money.
yeah. And I really appreciate that feedback. And that's why I want to meet with you more, because I don't know, I'm just one guy and they're just my ideas. But if I can meet with you more before I'm doing stuff and everybody tells me, no, we don't want municipal funds used for this, then I won't use them. But the problem is I don't have any communication, and I need more to get more in line with the assembly and the mayor whom I work for.
I'm just going to follow up. I think it's an appropriate use to get the word out. Like, if you do a group at Clark Middle School and you have 20 kids that are involved in an activity, and at the end they get a T-shirt, but just to pass them out for random reasons, maybe not so much. So yeah, but I know what you're saying. You just need more
Yeah.
communication.
Well, and just to let you know, a lot of the women I've approached and just talked to about it, especially young women, my daughter's age, she's like 23 or 24, they enthusiastically want to help spread the word that there's a place to go if you're being sexually harassed. And they like hoodies and they like this stuff and they wear it. I've been to multiple municipal events and I see my stuff all over the place. Even municipal employees are helping spread the word. So it's like other departments are helping. My department's 5 people and they're helping, so. But I appreciate the feedback and I want more,
All right, we have about 4 minutes left. Mr. Bond.
Yeah, along those same lines, I'm wondering about, do you guys make efforts to get the word out on like social media, or what does that look like for your department?
No, because I'm not fluent in social media, but my outreach coordinator is fluent in social media.
Okay, so that's
And I
gonna be kind
just
of an
got
ongoing
assigned
effort.
duties
Great.
by IT and the Muni to be able to go into those accounts and start looking at them and updating the website and using social media. So that is something that I am charged with, that you'll be seeing some activity on. And I really welcome your input. Commissioner Braga, I would love to meet with you, any of you, to help me put together the education and the outreach tasks that I can implement. I am one person and Keoki's been doing it all by himself. So I'm happy to take that off of his plate, but I could really use some of your feedback because you know what's going on in your districts and you can probably point me into the right places and the people that I can be the most effective.
All right, I have last in the queue, Mr. Martinez.
It's along these same lines. I would encourage, it seems that there's a probable ratio between the workload that you can have aspirationally, the workload that you have, and the staffing sweet spot, right? So it seems like there should be then a relationship between outreach and the workload that's necessary to kind of fulfill the staffing ability, right? And so presumably you wouldn't want everyone in Anchorage to file a complaint next week if they got the word out, right? Presumably you would want it to
No.
be, I'm just saying, presumably you'd want it to be aligned to both where the needs are, those trends, and then also what the workload can in fact take on to be able to
Yeah.
deliver really high quality services. And so I
Yeah.
would just recommend that with respect to the outreach question that I think folks have had, and I think it's a fair one, that there really is some degree of measuring primarily beforehand, recognizing what is the impact that is trying to be achieved with respect to the core work of the
Yeah.
commission, which is case load and then the management of the cases.
Yeah, I discussed my projects with the EEOC and their feedback was, these are really good projects.
Right, or
and
we
your
can go
caseload
offline
is
about
gonna
that.
go up.
Yeah,
So
I
be
wanted
bracing
to
yourself
close
for an
with that
increase.
recommendation and just make sure that at least it was clear that I think there's a relationship between
Yeah,
workload, outreach, and kind of the goal of
yeah.
it.
And
more of a
frankly,
recommendation.
being 4 years behind, people knew it. I met with different ethnic civil rights groups. They're like, we don't send people to you. Your agency's useless. I met with LGBT groups. They're like, we don't send people to you. You do nothing for us. They know when one of their people comes to us and 4 years later has no results. And we get sued. We get sued for not doing it on time. And it costs the municipality money. The major thing everybody said was, get your cases done or you're gonna get sued.
So
When I talked to other agencies.
I just jump in there and say then the previous question of what happens if you don't meet the 240 days. Also, a second consequence other than justice delayed is we might get sued. Cameron, you sure? Okay, so that brings us to the end of our time. Thank you for the briefing, and it is a subject of great interest and conversation we'll be having about kind of how this whole thing should operate. And so anyhow, thank you, everybody. We'll be back here in 10 minutes to figure out our budget.
Hey, Chris, I didn't hear you about, did you want to meet before next Tuesday? Okay.
Yes, yes.